everyone! In my last video, I went into details about the application process for MEXT YLP, which basically covers the first stage. So in this video, I will cover the last stage of the application process, which is the interview and the examination stage, if you didn't take the GMAT exams. So first of all, congratulations for making it into this stage. Now you just have to pass this final hurdle before getting that scholarship. So in this video, I asked some of my classmates who are also in the YLP cohort this year for their advices on how they prepared for the exams and the interview, and also some of the tips that they can give you for this application process. So now let's get into it.
Hi everyone, I'm Lawrence Alvarez. I'm 27 years old and my background before coming to ICS was in real estate.
Hi, I'm Ali Valdemoro. So I worked for the Development Bank of the Philippines as an account officer, and I'm into development loans.
Hi, my name is Brett. I am currently a student at Hitotsubashi ICS. Prior to this, I was working as a management consultant in the Philippines for about 3 years.
Hi, I'm Parinita. I'm from India and I run my own family business back home. So I was an entrepreneur.
Hello, I'm Louis Lane Calicnan. I am from the arts and culture background. I'm an arts manager. I work in a corporate foundation managing ESG and CSR programs. I was also into art education at the Ateneo de Manila University. And for more than a decade, that has been my practice before going to apply for the MBA program at Hitotsubashi ICS.
For the exam, basically I used this program called TTP, Target Test Prep. It teaches me about the quantitative problems that you have to go through for the GMAT, and because the YLP's in-house test is very similar to the GMAT, I used this program, I studied it for about 2 or 3 hours every day after work. And I did that for around 2 months. So for the interview, what I did was I went online, I looked for possible MBA questions from different Ivy League schools, and then I sent these to my friends. I asked them to modify it, and then I scheduled about 2 weeks straight, about almost every day I had an interview, and I asked them to make the questions as hard as possible. And I did that for 2 weeks straight before my interview with the ICS faculty.
So I looked for resources in the internet, and I found out that there is a school. It's Health Business School, wherein they give a simulation test for GMAT. So first, I tried to look for resources online where I can review, and then I tried to take that test just to understand how the questions will be. Also, I think I used a podcast in Spotify. It's a GMAT strategy podcast wherein they give you tips on how to pass the exam, how to prepare for the GMAT exam. They also have MBA interview questions, preparations that you can also use. Also, the YouTube videos are also very helpful. They give you advice on how to answer questions and interview questions. So I listed all of the usual MBA interview questions, and then I prepared my answers based on that.
For the YLP interviews, I didn't do, I guess, too much different or go out of my way to really prepare, because I feel like a lot of the preparation came in when I wrote my essays. And I think when I talk to people from the upper batches, a lot of the discussion revolves around those essays. So I think it just boils down to knowing what you wrote and being able to talk more about it and justifying everything that you said. It's not like an intensive interview process. There's no like explicit case that you'll have to dissect or further analyze. From my experience, it was more about just getting to know the school, them getting to know you, and getting to understand what you wrote a bit more. Yeah.
So I came to know about the YLP like 5 days before the deadline. So for me, it was like a whirlwind of things. So I didn't really get time to prepare, but then I kind of really put in a lot more energy in my answering the questions and giving like proper supporting documents. And for the exam, I also mentioned to the board that I don't have GMAT scores. So I think they later on included that and considered that as a request, and later on I had to give that exam. Again, for the exam, I didn't know what to expect, so I just went there without any expectations, really. Really, for me, it was all about just, keeping like a cool head. And like I was especially very concerned for the math bit, because I like always like jumble up the math. So for that, like, I had to really like, but again, I didn't know what to expect. And to be honest, it was just the very common things that you really require. It's nothing very uh, difficult or high tech. It's something very commonly used arithmetic that you need to. For the interview, I think I reviewed my application questions once, because there was a lot of time gap between when I actually applied and the interview. So I did a lot of, so I read my responses, really. And so I was like aware of what needs to be answered if there are questions in that regard. I also did a little bit of research on the university and where I was going and what do I really expect out of this university, and how will this experience help me in the future. That those are some things that I really prepared myself for.
Two kinds of preparations. First would be exam preparation, the intellectual requirement of taking an MBA entrance exam. So for that, I tried online MBA mock exams. So these are short versions of MBA entrance exams to reacquaint myself, first on the topic, second on the kind of mental processing that is required to take up an exam, because it has been like more than a decade since I last took an actual exam in my practice, and I did not come from a business or financial background, so I had to refresh myself in terms of that kind of mindset or that kind of mental activity. Second would be preparing myself for the actual interview. So, how do you actually prepare for these kinds of things? For me, I did two things. First, I prepared my answers, because in the interview, they want to know you, not what you know or not what you know about the school. They want to know yourself. So I had to reacquaint myself with the purpose that I wanted to achieve for the application for the MBA, and why am I doing this? Or what benefit will it be for the institution, myself, and the society, and as well as preparing myself by reviewing some important facts about the institution, about the program, and how can I put myself into that perspective. Like, what electives do I want to take? Why do I want to take this MBA? What is my purpose? And so that's what I wanted to bring into the interview that I will be undertaking. Took a while for me to prepare for the first one because of all the requirements, but here it was more of a mental preparation, and especially for the interview. So I had to just a few days of prepping myself and the confidence and the inputs that I had to strengthen within me as the foundations of my purpose.
For the GMAT, well, for me, it boiled down to spending a consistent amount of time every day studying it. There are a lot of learning materials online, I'm sure. They should be accessible, whether that's through a fee or through whatever free resources you can access. What really helped me was dedicating an hour to a day to progressing my studies so that my learning was consistent and it's retained. And At least with me, I was fortunate enough to have a substantial amount of spare time in my day for that period. It took me about 3 months to study and prepare for the exam. And that's pretty much it. A consistent regimen of like going through the books, going through the exercises, and making sure I covered everything before booking my exam and committing to it. Yeah.
The interview will be based on your essay, and so of course, the interview is going to be very customized to what you put there. So I think one thing you need to take into account is you need to know your essay by heart, because if you're not able to answer something that they asked on your essay, then they'll probably think that somebody else answered it for you. And another thing is that you have to be authentic. You have to show like what can you contribute to the school based on your experiences. How can you help other people's learning? I believed I did pretty good in the quantitative part, because actually my undergrad grades were not very good, and I actually did a bit of research on the other people who were applying, and I think most of them had much higher undergrad GPAs than me. But I think if you're able to make up for it in the YLP test, your essays, and your interview, I think you have a good chance of getting in.
For the YLP mock GMAT, it's not really as what I expected because when you look at because I tried the simulation test of GMAT in HALT, it's very long actually, but the mock GMAT of Hitatsubashi ICS is actually very short. So um, I think I did pretty well maybe on that part because I prepared a bit more. So maybe that's what you do. The moment you receive, or maybe even before a notice that you passed or you were shortlisted, maybe you could start preparing already. Because I prepared the questions beforehand, so I know what to answer in case the professor asked me. Also, the professor at the start is very how do you say
Rigid.
this? Very rigid at the start, and then you just have to smile and be yourself. Say the things that you learned before, the things you experienced before, the things you studied before, and maybe connect it to the school. Maybe that's one thing. When you research about the school, connect it to what you want, what you envision that school to be, and maybe that will give you a higher chance to get that scholarship.
At the end of the day, I think it's important to just be honest in what you write, because I think aside from, of course, the academic preparation and how you show how capable you are in terms of the GMAT or the YLP test, whichever path you take, it matters that what you say is genuine, and it is actually an honest reflection of who you are. And when you talk about that to the professors, if you get to that point, it'll be much easier for you then. But also do make sure that this reflection of who you are is something that might be beneficial to ICS. So it's a balance of that, honest, and also making sure that what you write is going to be appealing to those that are looking for an MBA cohort of like capable students with interesting backgrounds and competence in what they do. So yeah, that's my advice.
If you have your senpais to talk to, your seniors to talk to, that's like most wonderful thing. Do talk to them. I think they'll give you a lot more guidance than I had. So I think that is always a good starting point. Um, and always be very clear as to what you want. I think that was very important for me. So if you know what you're getting out of this program, why you here, and where you want to go, I think that's like half the battle won.
The MBA mock exams, yes, it helped me a lot in terms of preparing me for what's to come, since again, this is not the industry where I came from. So that was such a big help. For the interview, it also reinforced within me why I wanted to take up this opportunity and why I should convince them to accept me or allow me to be part of the cohort for the year. The most important thing that I held on to while I was in the process of the application is what would make me a unique candidate, and that is lies within the purpose of taking the MBA and what I could give back after taking the MBA. Because remember, YLP is a specific program for young leaders, and therefore, as leaders, what are we going to do with the kind of education or the opportunity that will be given to us through this scholarship? So I focused on how will I be able to create a ripple effect, and how will my education affect or give back to the community that I serve, both within the Philippines as well as international relations in Japan. So that kind of puts me into the perspective of why should I be considered as part of this kind of specific scholarship.
All right, you have already heard a lot from my classmates, and I think you might have noticed that the common themes from all of their advices were number one, preparation, and number two, authenticity. So, as you are applying for a highly coveted scholarship, it is just right that you come thoroughly prepared both for the exams and the interview, and show off confidently and authentically. The key is for the panel to really get to know you, what you want out of this program, and what you can give to this batch. How will you be different from all of the others who are also applying? Think about these things, tie them up with your essays, and I believe that you will have a great chance of getting in. So, again, congratulations for getting here so far. Good luck in the next stage and see you in Tokyo. Bye!